Mary, coming from the leading recruiting firm in the country, in the world, I guess, in that matter, certainly you have more expertise than most on what it takes to find a great job and what it takes to find a great candidate. In this case, we're focusing on students, sales students particularly. What advice would you give them to help them launch on the right career for them?
I think first and foremost, Howard, salespeople, even if they are the top candidate and they know that for a fact, in order to be a buyer, they should act like a seller. And what I mean by that is work to secure an offer from every company, even if they don't know for sure that they want that opportunity. First and foremost, sell themselves so that they have the choice in the end to decide whether or not that company is the best fit.
Would that actually be like acting to seem like you're really interested in a job, or somehow do these students need to convince themselves to take this one seriously?
I don't think we know whether or not fit is a great opportunity until we have a complete source of information. And that might take 3 or 4 interviews. And it's really important in junior and senior year to get on every interview possible and to work extremely hard in that interview to secure a second or third or final interview. And at that time, you have all the information to know whether or not the company is the best alternative for you. Once a salesperson has multiple options to choose from, it's important to get on paper what their career criteria is. And I would recommend that there's 5 different areas they look at. And the first one is industry. It's critical in industry to be in a fast-growing industry because growth brings opportunities. Also, if the industry is in the earlier stages, sales plays a more important role. As it gets more towards commoditization, salespeople don't play the same role they do when they have to create the need and sell their company's solution on the complete solution versus price. So industry growth is key. A second area is company, and there's a couple key criteria to look at. First of all is growth. Is the company outgrowing the industry? That would be key because it shows that they have strong products and or a strong sales organization, but they're doing things better than most people in the industry. Salespeople need to align themselves with winning companies. Another is, what is the driver of that company? There's 3 different types of companies. There are value companies, price-driven companies, and the marketing leader. And for someone to choose the sales career, the best place for you to be is in a value-driven company. And why that is, in marketing companies, most of the money and energy goes to the marketing group to create the leading brand. In price companies, most of the money and research goes to how do we cut out costs so we can compete on price. But in value-driven companies, all of the emphasis is on having the best sales organization and the best solution because you can't be the cheapest and you aren't known for the best. So you have to bring that additional value. And there's more investment made in training and incentivizing the sales organization in those companies.
Mary, those are great points, but you indicated there were 5 points altogether. What would be some of the others?
The other ones are in the area of the company as well, and I'd encourage people to look at a couple key areas. One is, what type of culture do you need to be successful? And does that company have a culture that promises to fulfill those areas? For example, are you someone that needs to be in a place that focuses on recognition and training? And I would encourage you as a new salesperson in the marketplace to find someone that places a heavy emphasis on training and on recognition. Sales is tough. There's a lot of rejection, and 9 out of 10 times you'll be rejected. So to have recognition and training as a part of the company is really critical in your first sales role.
What would you consider, Mary, to be the 4th most important issue that students should look for in a company?
The fourth area is to understand the company's value system and make sure that what their vision is of a value system is actually lived through the organization and it aligns with yours. You can read what their value system is at their corporate site. What's more important is to understand through asking questions in all of your interviews exactly what value system is lived throughout the organization and does it fit in with yours.
Mary, those are really great points. I'm almost embarrassed to ask you for the fifth, but you did mention
The
5.
fifth one is finding a leader that you can admire, respect, and have as a mentor for the next year to 2 years. And frankly, that person, if ideal, will be a mentor for the next few decades in your career.
How would a student tell whether a company is market-driven or value-driven or price-driven? What should they look for?
There are a couple tips in identifying whether or not a company is value-driven and or sales-driven. First is to look at the bio of the CEO. What was their background? Typically, companies have leaders that emulate whatever their driver is. Our company, our CEO came from our Vice President of Business Development. He's sales-driven. We have 1,500 out of 2,000 employees are in the sales area. That would be the second tip. Understand the makeup of their organization and see where their heavy emphasis of personnel is, what type of function. And if it's in sales, that's a good way to understand whether or not they're sales focused. A third area is go to their website. What's on their primary page above the fold? What are the key messages that the CEO speaks about in their letter annually to their shareholders? The key messages will indicate whether it's a sales-driven company. And for new people getting out of college and choosing a sales career, it's important to be at a company that places a heavy emphasis on sales.
Mary, we know from our personal experience in providing services for you that CareerBuilder and you particularly really put tremendous emphasis on the corporate culture and the corporate values. What are some examples of values that a student candidate should be looking for in a company they're pursuing?
Well, there's a couple that we have that I think you'll see in many organizations. The key is to see if they're lived throughout the organization. One is integrity, honesty, candor. Our core values, candor. And what I would encourage you to measure or understand in the company is, do they welcome insight and ideas and feedback to improve the organization? Is that embraced and asked for? Because it's important to feel like you have a voice and you can commit to making your company better. Another one is disciplined freedom. And that's said in many different ways. Those are the words we choose in our organization. But that goes around, once you've earned the right to do the job on your own, that you do have some freedom and flexibility in how you choose to get the results that are expected of you.
How might a student in an interview test, so to speak, or probe for candor and for disciplined freedom?
I would ask for time with people who are going to be in my position. I would ask to go on a field ride or sit chairside with one of their top performers. And I would ask that individual to share with you the culture of the company. What are the core values? And then I would ask for examples of how they've been able to utilize those core values in their career with the company and see what specifics they give you. You can read what their value system is at their corporate site. What's more important is to understand through asking questions in all of your interviews exactly what value system is lived throughout the organization and does it fit in with yours. Because there's an art and science to sales. Science should be described by the company, but if you want a long-term career in sales, then you need to find a company that's going to embrace your artistic abilities as a salesperson and allow you to incorporate those into their scientific process. because if a company's growing at the cost of making money, they won't have additional funds to fuel growth, future growth, and investment in their sales organization, products, and services. So it's important to also evaluate, do they have the profitability to sustain the growth that they're having to date?
Mary, in both our experiences, you and your CS role with Career Builder, and certainly Challey, has discovered that the supply and demand curve has changed. There are significantly fewer great candidates for more company positions. What advice would you give to a company in order to attract and sign individuals to come with their organizations?
Howard, you bring up a great point that I think many companies, or at least their recruiters, don't realize, and that is that they are sellers, not buyers. And that is the useful belief to have. And so first I would say on looking at your compensation plan and goals and measurements to make sure that your entire recruitment staff is measured in a way that they act like salespeople. Even if you're the most admired company in America, in order to get top talent, one has to realize that we have to market the opportunity. So with that light, there are some different ways to market your opportunities best at the college campus. First and foremost, I'd encourage you to take advantage of all opportunities to interact with these sales candidates or potential sales people for your organization. I'd encourage you to have internship programs. Give them an opportunity to have some of the best be in your organization junior year or even sophomore year, so that they can tell all their peers when they get back junior and senior year that your company is tried and true. It's everything you say it is, and it is the best place to launch their sales career. A second area is to communicate frequently through email, through written messaging, through events before the actual interview days with the potential candidates. And I would say not as much a messaging of your company as much as being a coach and how to prioritize what are the criteria they should look for, and how to make this very tough decision they're about to make in choosing the right company. So I encourage you to help them write their RFP for their future company. Even help them write their resume and coach them through how to have the best resume. The people that help them through this process will earn the right to have them interview with their organizations. One other piece of advice that I think is critical: these people are looking for a person to work for versus the company. Many times we send our HR staff down or our recruiters to do the recruiting. In college campuses, it's critical to expose these potential candidates to their future leaders, and also to success stories who were in their shoes within the last 2 years. So I'd encourage you to bring your top newer leaders down and top salespeople who you recruited 2 years ago or less from these organizations to be at the mixers and to participate in the interviews, so that the salespeople have something to believe in. They know where they can go, they see the success stories, and they understand who their mentor will be.
Very oftentimes it's easier to fix mistakes, to correct what I'm doing wrong, than it is to reach for the stars and try to be outstanding. In that light, what do you see the most common mistakes companies make when they do try to recruit and attract the right talent?
One is arrogance, to believe that they don't have to spend money, they don't have to put leadership time, and or that they are the buyer up front. Arrogance will allow you to have mediocre talent, and eventually mediocre talent will cause you to not be number one. anymore. So I think that's a key, is to make sure we always stay with the seller's perspective and marketer's perspective. A second area is, and this comes from arrogance. I've had many recruiters tell me, well, I only want people who will jump through at least 10 hoops, because that means they really want us. And we mistake desire with desperation. So what they truly get many times are the desperate people who will jump through 10 hoops. Third area is complexity. It's been amazing to me how many executives have never gone through their interview process to understand what it takes to express interest in a company, to actually send a resume, or to go through the actual interview process. And many companies don't really assess who their competition is for talent, because the competition for consumers or business companies is not the same as for talent typically. One has to look at, who do we lose these top salespeople to? What is their interview process? How quickly do they get the leaders in front of these candidates? Is it 3 interviews or 5 interviews? What type of process does it take for them to just give us their resume? We just recently analyzed a company. There was 112 questions. It took an hour and a half for someone to go through an application for a cashier at a grocery store. And to understand that now that person at 11 o'clock at night can switch off that site and within seconds go to another, and within 30 seconds apply to another company. They're not going through the hour and a half anymore.
Mary, we found in our world-class research that whenever a company won, it was always surprised. And the reason they were surprised is they weren't focusing on what they had already done well, but rather what they still needed to do. Looking forward, and the great growth company Career Builder is, what are you looking to do to improve your recruiting activities now?
Well, I think there's a couple different areas. For the transactional sales opportunities, more the first level, it's making sure we hire out of desire versus need. So we take the time to make sure the individuals are a strong fit with the organization. There's still an opportunity to improve turnover and make sure that the folks that join us have success and stay with us long term. On the high-level sales executive positions, where we're looking for people with 10, 12 years of experience, that still continues to be a challenging area to find, top 5% with a decade of experience, specifically with the account that they're going to be representing. And so that's an area that we continue to look at additional sources, different ways to expand referrals, how to add diversity into our arena of candidates.